Hello, everybody. Today I'm talking to one person who you will see at every single Saturday, wherever Boca is playing right now, or you have seen him at the regionals. He's always around. He has been around for a long time. He's one of the true legends of the game here in Florida. And with no further ado, I'm going to introduce my guest today, John Davenport. Hello, John. How you doing? Nice
Hello,
to see
Charlie.
you.
Thank you, Charlie. It's Devonport, by the way. 99% of people get it wrong. Don't worry about it.
Why
DE.
is it? Listen, I have a problem with English because why is it Davenport if it's spelled Devonport?
Well, Devonport is the name, but when I came here, people kept calling me Davenport, and
Yeah,
I found
as,
out that
as they should,
a,
as they
Devon,
should.
a Davenport is a settee, apparently, a
Yes,
couch.
yes. There's a city of Davenport.
So, by the way, I've been Davenport all through my rugby life because there was a character called Dudley Davenport, who was a famous comedian on the radio, and always known throughout my Wasps career as Davers, so I'm used to it, mate. You know, I
Okay,
had
so
I had a name that nobody could pronounce, and I worked for a company nobody could spell, Guinness, So.
man, every time because I have to write down that last name mostly because I'm letting people know about Ross Davenport,
Yeah,
and every single time it's with E. Remember, it's with. I have to like make an effort because oh my god.
I
So
don't.
I I understand you just turned 80 young years recently, and
Yes,
that means you've had a what? How many years within rugby?
it was 70 this month. I think I
70
started
years.
this. Yeah, I started at high school equivalent. Yeah, and I had a Welsh physical education teacher who saw me play one game of soccer or football, and said, "No, you're never going to be a soccer player. You're going to play rugby." And I said, "Well, what's rugby?" And that's how it started.
What was it like back then? Was rugby a sport that you had to play in every school? Was this a public
Yeah,
school?
it was in a public school, or a state school, yeah, a grammar school, and they had every sport. You had football, and you had rugby. So he said, "You're going to play rugby, and you will be a hooker."
A hooker. So you weren't that tall back then.
No, no, no. I had a spurt later on, but yes, I became a hooker. I didn't have a clue what I was doing, but remember he was Welsh, so he was rugby in his mood. So you were going to play rugby, and he was going to have a rugby team again. So yeah, that's how it started. 11 years old, I think. Yeah.
Just somebody just told me the exact same story of having a Welsh coach in an English school.
That's right. Rugby coach was almost certainly Welsh,
So
because they, like New Zealand, they sort of grew up with the ball in their hand.
do you still like remember your first games?
I do indeed. Yes, I didn't have
Oh,
a
you do?
clue what I was doing, but you learn fast, right?
No, yeah.
Yes, yeah,
You have no
yeah,
choice.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Wow.
we had a first and a second team. I fairly quickly made the first team. I liked it. I liked the physicality of it. I liked the engagement. I was always even for my adult years. I loved the tackle.
So
Yeah,
so you were like what 12 years old?
I was 11 when I started. 11
11.
when I started. Yeah, till I was 15. It's 15. Yeah. So I played all the way through school, and then I left school. But there was no rugby in my town, so all the boys that left decided to form a town rugby club because we had nowhere to go. So we founded a club which is now nearly 70 years old. It was 65 years old. Yeah, called Poole Dolphins, my hometown. Yeah,
Okay.
so I helped get that going until I was recruited to the next door town, which had a better rugby team. Yeah, called Bournemouth. So I played.
That's why they have that soccer team of which Ross is a big fan,
They
right?
have, yes, Bournemouth and Buscombe Football Club. Yeah, the Cherries. Yeah, it's not my team because I was born in Liverpool and I've always been a Liverpool
Oh,
fan. So we have a divided family. Oh boy.
and and how did your career? And you were like in love with rugby. Was that like a big thing?
Oh yeah, big things. I mean, it's rare to have started a club. I'm still going. I was still in touch with them. keep inviting me back because I think I'm the oldest one still alive. That's
You
part of
should
when
go
it
and play
started.
a game, man.
When it started,
You should go and play a game and put, one of those gold shorts that they can't tackle you, so you can still.
yeah, I played one of those in London, the golden oldies where you had coloured shorts.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I went back in 1989 and did that. Yeah, good fun. Bloody Japanese, they all had pig shorts and you couldn't tackle them. But that's another story. Yeah, so sort of rugby wise, I then left for London, got a job in London, and I joined a junior club for a year, a very good junior club.
Is this like this late 60s we're talking about?
This is 19, when I go to London, 66, I went to London. Played a year at Ostley, very good junior club. And then I went for a trial. You had trials in those days. I went for a trial at Wasps in 67. And I got selected to play for Wasps in the amateur days, yeah. So 67 was my first time at Wasps. It took me a year or two to get in the first team, but yeah, it was a great club.
So you made the first team with the Wasps?
I made the first team. It took me 3 years or so. 1970, I suppose. Yeah, I finally got in the first team. Yeah, at number 8. Yeah.
How was it training back in those days? How intense was it, or not intense? Did you guys like smoke after practices and stuff like that?
Oh God, I've seen people smoke during training. It was yeah, a lot of fitness, not much
Not much
coaching,
fun.
not much coaching of skills. A lot of running around the pitch and diagonals and all things that still go today. So it's more about fitness, and they assumed you have the game and you know the game and the skills. Obviously, you had some plans like lineouts and scrums and what you were going to do. And yeah, I think my first game was 1970.
What about the gym? Did you guys have to go to the gym, or that was not really a thing?
What was the gym? I've never seen one. There wasn't any gyms in those days.
Because it's funny that you see games from back then, in the late 60s, 70s, and the sizes of the guys and their physical setup is so different than nowadays. That, I mean, it's like if we were to play like 2025 rugby players, which are professional, of course, also, even if they weren't, against those guys, it would be bad, I think.
Oh, listen, there are backs bigger than our forwards, these days. Most of the backs are bigger and stronger, 5% body fat, but we had jobs, and we drank a lot, I have to say, including after training on Saturdays. Drinking was part of the culture, and you played and you drank wherever you went as well. So a lot of songs, a lot of camaraderie. It was a network in those days. Yeah.
And
But
and
I was
and
talking about network. I was talking to Boca about that a year or so ago. In most clubs, the clubhouse is the important part. It's built around the clubhouse, which you don't have in America, unfortunately. But and your network then grew. My mechanic was a player, my carpenter, my plumber, my insurance guy. You used all the people in the club to work with them. Whatever we did, so it was as much off the field as it was on the field, if you know what I mean. And people don't quite in the USA get the network effect of rugby, which I did.
what type? How are these games like in terms of when you played with the first side of the Wasps? In terms of like attendance, you would play in a little stadium.
Yeah, not bad. We'd have
What
probably an
kind of
average home game 1,000, 1,500 people, standing, and there was no charge to come in. It was the club of that particular part of London, North London. You had and you had a lot of clubs that probably still don't exist today, sadly. The Coventrys, the Orals, the Gosforths, a lot of clubs disappeared. They went pro, of course. But we played in Wales. You played the Cardiffs, you played the Newports, played Llanelli. So you played all the big Welsh clubs, and they came to you as well. So it was a fierce competition.
This was like the top competition, right?
Oh yeah,
Did you ever get to play against any like touring national side coming from Australia, New Zealand, or South Africa?
We played against sides from Argentina, San Isidro and
Okay.
Belgrano came. Yeah, they came and played us, and we have an Aussie side from time to time. You know, club or.
How did those games go with the RPs?
Great. I mean, the Argentinian sides were great. You know, they got the culture, they got the club culture, they loved the club, and they played great rugby. You know, I didn't speak any English, but you know, I was always hearing, "You were ocho, get the fucker." You know, sorry. Yeah, they were good. They were good company. They were great guys. In Argentina, we said you had funny names. They would be like.
Oh yeah,
Julio O'Reilly. You know, you had the Irish influence, and there was, well, you know, Argentina, crazy mix of started by the Jesuits and started by the various religious groups. You know, that's where rugby formed in Argentina, and I believe Chile too. I was talking to somebody this weekend. I don't know much about Chile and rugby, but yeah, a lot of South America was influenced by the churches. Jesuits, Catholics, or whatever they were, Presbyterians too. Yeah, it's an interesting mix. So yeah, we played against them. And I recall one particularly memorable game when remember when the All Blacks were beaten by Clearly. It was a historical game. The All Blacks being beaten by a club team.
Yeah,
and I had the misfortune of going down there 10 days later.
That's why I was asking you.
Yeah, they brought back the whole damn team to play against us. And for a lot of people, they hadn't been able to get into the ground, so they saw their team that had beaten the All Blacks come on to play against us. 72-6 it was, I remember it. Not a pleasant experience. But anyway, it was good fun. A lot of good memorable names and friendships. Yeah.
So at what point you came here to the States in '92? I think you told me, right?
Just a little bit of sort of my rugby history. When I played for the club on a Saturday, there was a structure in London. They had Sunday teams, sociable. You know, they're based off various clubs, and every summer there was a tour going on somewhere. So I, for about 7 years, went on a tour with somebody, Penguins, you know, select sides, and they would go off and play extraordinary countries like Sri Lanka and Belgium and Germany and Denmark. Yeah, it was good fun. So you played a lot of games. That's why, you know, when I was president, I couldn't believe when people saying, "Oh, we don't want to play more. We don't play more than 12 or 14 games." I played 42 of most years. Yeah, yeah, that was it. But that was your life, you know, and you had a job as well, of course. Yeah, so I talk about Rugby Network. I mean, unashamedly, I would tell you I got every job in my life through Rugby Network. Every job. I even came here through a Rugby Network in Hong Kong. So, you know, it's been great to me. I moved here in '92. Yeah.
And at that time you already had you have 2 kids, right?
No, 3 kids came here. Yeah, they were in various grades. Yeah, so that's 3-year.
And they all played rugby.
There wasn't no rugby here. Ross,
no,
FAU had just started, so Ross was at high school, but on Saturday he played rugby for FAU. Second son, he played for Jacksonville years later, but there wasn't anywhere to go, you know, when you were 17, 18. So you sneaked on and he played for FAU for a year or so. Yeah.
What brought you here to the States?
I worked for 30 years with Guinness, and they wanted to open an office here to run the Caribbean. So I had this misfortune of living in Florida and having to travel all the islands of the Caribbean year after year. You know, it's a tough job. Develop the Caribbean. Yeah, right. Who gets paid for traveling the Caribbean and drinking beer? it was a dream job, right? It was supposed to be for 3 years, and then it got extended to 5, and then to 7, and then to 8. So it was great fun, and of course that's on the work side. But I was also, as getting involved in rugby more and more as well.
Yeah.
Coaching, FAU, a little bit of coaching at Boca.
Let's start from the beginning, because you came in '92, and I guess like the next day you were looking for a rugby club around.
Yeah, I was looking for one and stumbled upon Boca through a rugby connection again.
Who was in charge of Boca back in those days?
Mr. Bing Tan,
Okay.
a very unique character, Bing, from Massachusetts originally, but he was in charge of everything. He actually at one stage made himself Florida president for life until somebody changed that.
Really?
That's how passionate he was. And it was cut to 4 years. But yeah, Bing was a great character. He started FAU too with another guy. He was passionate about the game, and started FAU women's team. I think he got involved with that briefly. Yeah, so I met Bing, and then typically when you come to a new country, new city, you know nobody, but rugby gave me 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 friends, and parties and social life. And wonderful. It was just like being in England. So there was no clubhouse, but we had a pub.
Yeah, you could have bought the pub maybe by now after all years, eh?
we did try to buy the property next door, but we didn't have enough money. It could have been. Yeah, you must have spent enough. But we have great support from the pub too there.
So you're always attached to Boca, right?
Yeah.
Since the beginning, and you're currently also the president for. You've been the
president. I've been president for a few years. I was treasurer before that, so I've always been doing something with Boca.
You guys had some period where you were playing division. Tell me a little bit about the history once you came here of Boca.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Here I was.
And were you like coaching there or helping to coach? I don't know.
No. I was president of Florida by this time, and my son, I think, was president of Boca. But anyway, it was an issue as to whether we went up to Division 1 or stayed in Division 2. All the clubs were given the vote, whether to stay in 2 or go up to 1. Only one club decided to go to 1, and it was voted that Boca would give it a year. It actually bankrupted the club, and I don't think they won a game hardly. But
because you guys back then were like winning D2 for several years, you were like the dominant club.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, from the union perspective, I was discouraging clubs from going to 1. I said, no, do not go to 1. We're a D2 state, and we can be very successful at that. Do not go to Division 1, despite the temptations. Boca decided to go and lost its shirt. The next year, Tampa under Di Morgan won the D2 title.
Oh, okay.
So and it was the runner-up the next year. So my philosophy that we were a D2 state and should remain a D2 state. I mean, until the likes of Trident's come along, but let's have success at D2. Don't go to 1. We're not good enough. We really weren't good enough. And that proved right. So I say, Boca loses its shirt and Tampa wins the national D2. Yeah, it was an extraordinary couple of years.
So that was just 1 year in D1?
1 year. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And were you like getting beaten badly at every game, or you did well?
Yeah, we did not do well, and travel was a killer, as we know.
Yeah.
It's you were traveling to Atlanta, you're going here, you're going there. We didn't have the money. The players didn't have the money. I didn't think about that when they made the decision to do it, and I think it was a bit of arrogance. We'd done really well, successful at D2, got to the last 4. Yeah, I can understand. Let's go for it. Hang on, guys. Who's paying for it? We didn't have the money. You got to travel. You got to get on planes, and it's a lot of money. As I'm sure Tridents are finding, I'm sure they're well backed, but you're playing in that, what's it called, the Premier
ARP.
AMP, whatever it is. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, but it's sort of a limited. It's not. It's like a short season. They managed to do it last year pretty successfully, I think. Being
Yeah,
there.
I think that's a club that's gone beyond everybody else. Clearly, it's demonstrated that. So good luck to them. I hope they can finance it, because I know from experience with Boca, it's financially ruined the club pretty well.
I mean, for D1 to make sense for Florida, we would need like more than one team here in Florida, and maybe 2 or 3 or 4 in close by states. Not have
Correct.
to go to New York or
No,
Texas.
you go to Alabama, go to Atlanta. Atlanta was
Yeah.
the
Okay.
cheapest
Yeah.
one. Go and play in Atlanta and Old White or whatever they would
But
call it.
it's definitely too much.
Yeah, it's a lot of money, and you've got to think about it. And you've got to think about the caliber of the players. Clearly well coached. A lot of South American influence. Tridents have done it. Good luck to them. A great team. And I hope they play in D1 one time.
So
Certainly better than beating every team by 50 points. You learn nothing from that, and they realize that. So, yeah. So always Boca. We did flirt with 1 year. From a rugby perspective, outside of Boca, because I was the president of Florida Union, I was sitting on the south, representing Carolina.
on the what, sorry?
On the USA
South.
South.
Yes,
Those days there was a structure which was
Panthers.
Carolina, North Carolina, South Carolina, Alabama, Louisiana. What have I missed? Georgia, obviously, and us. Tennessee, yeah, probably, yeah. It was a good operation, and out of that came the beginnings of sort of select sides, But then, as is USA's will, they changed the whole structure. There wasn't a USA South as such anymore, It's a pity.
There is not now, currently?
It was dissolved as a governing body. Yeah.
Oh, really? When?
Yeah.
Just now?
No. It was dissolved, I'm going to say 10, 12 years ago. Really, it didn't exist. They restructured everything. There wasn't no regional body representing a number of teams. Like it was USA South, there was USA East, Mid, Central, West, 1, West 2. It was all coming out of USA Rugby were these regional bodies, and in their wisdom decided to disband that. But
you guys did a lot of touring with this.
Well, what happened was, a little bit of history for you. Kevin Kitto, myself, and 1 or 2 others decided we would keep USA South name, and then out of that came a possibility of touring. And the story behind that is quite interesting. USA Rugby had a seat on the IRB, but it didn't have a seat on another board, North American Caribbean Rugby Association. Heard of that? NACRA. It's called something else now. So, being close friends with Mr. Melville, who was the CEO, said we want to join that organization, but we can't send the USA Eagles first team down to play Jamaica and the Bahamas and Trinidad. It would be of no value to them or to us. So he said, would you guys form a select side, call yourself USA Rugby South, and represent America in those NACRA or NAWIRA or whatever it's called now, in the championships? So we said, yeah, sure. What are you going to pay us? No money, so it had to be self-financing. Good news is you represent America. Bad news, you're on your own. So we put together a plan. At select side, we met in, first meeting was New Orleans, I think. They wanted Atlanta, so we picked a select side from D2 teams mostly, some D1s, obviously Atlanta, but largely D2s. And we went and played every island, Mexico, Jamaica, Bahamas, Bermuda, Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, It was a wonderful experience. It was great. I was tour manager. Kevin was the boss. Kevin Kidder, the rest of soul. Great man. We got an Australian coach, Dave Conyers, very good coach. Really, some of them are still involved with Panthers now. So yeah, we won the championship one year. I recall. We runner-up another year in a rainstorm in Guyana, but it was a wonderful opportunity for guys to come out of D2 clubs, play for America, and it was hand on the heart and the flag and the anthem, and very successful. Yeah.
You were literally representing United States.
Oh yes, sir. Yeah, we were. Yes.
Within that.
Yeah, and then the USA Rugby managed to get a seat on the board of NACRA, North American Caribbean Rugby Association.
Correct. Yeah.
Which included Canada as well, by the way, and the islands. Yeah, good governing body, but USA wanted some representation, and they wanted some more muscle at the IRB level. So I would give them 2 seats on the IRB. It's all about votes and money and influence and contact. Good thing, good for us, good for players to represent their country. We're very proud. They spent a lot of money. It cost a lot of players, paid for everything, hotels, travel, air travel. We were all paying out of our own pockets. It was fantastic, except in Mexico. Playing at 8,000 feet wasn't a lot of fun,
Really? 8,000?
Yeah, just under, I think it was 7,800 feet in Mexico City. We had all the ability and strength, but we didn't have the oxygen.
They should have played 7 aside, 15 minutes. So, yeah. but the USA South was typically the strongest team, right?
Yes, always there in the finals. Yeah. Even though it was a second string USA team, it was the strongest team. But we weren't too dominant, so it meant you played these islands, and sometimes 5, 10 points. Mexico were good. Cayman Islands were great. A lot of expats. Bermuda, same. You had strong teams. Yeah, and it wasn't always easy. Yeah.
There was one thing I've always heard a little bit, like surrounding the USA South, that Florida had little representation, but I'm not sure why that
It did have very good representation. I remember we played Jamaica, and there were 3 guys from Boca, Miami. We had good representation in those days. Plenty of Florida. I don't know what it's been lately. There's a couple of guys from Miami playing for it. The Tridents. But yeah, they haven't got as much representation as probably they should have. Yeah, I don't know why that is.
Well, because everything sort of was centered a little bit more, of course, north of us.
Yeah, always. Yeah, Georgia, Carolinas. Yeah, and well, Florida for years was sort of like the South was sort of the forgotten rugby area of America.
The end of the world. Well,
yeah, literally. And nobody. You looked at Eagles teams over the years, and how many people came from until Perry came along, the Sevens, but there wasn't much representation from the South. The strength was always the West Coast, and the Northeast. Yeah. And it's always been like that, really. Yeah. It's a reality.
So, John, you decided for some reason to run for president of the union in 2008, right?
I did, yes.
What were you thinking? Why does anybody do that?
That's what I said to myself after about 6 months. Mark Ito, who was Lauderdale, he said, "Go on, I recommend you. I'll vote for you."
I'm glad we always have somebody willing to do it, right?
Yeah, sure. It was a good honor and a lot of fun, and he had a chance to change the game. I wasn't a very democratic president. I was autocratic. This is the way it's going to be. Do it, and I forced a lot of things through, and it was a challenge. Yeah, it was a challenge financially. It was bankrupt basically. So getting money in, having coaching courses, having referee courses, and having the union pay for it if you became a qualified coach or became a qualified ref. And that meant levying the clubs.
What was the landscape like club-wise? I guess we had all the historic clubs, and did we have women's already there, and was college part of the union, or that ran
Yeah,
separate?
college was part of the union, and the women were quite a strong voice. In fact, always challenging it. What share of spoils do we get, and wanting more. They always made it tough on budget. It's interesting now that Florida Union can have an annual general meeting. It's 4 hours, and the budget takes about 40 minutes. I was running it. We got down to having 2 days, one on the budget and arguments, and one day on other business. It was ridiculous, because there was always challenges about money and how it was apportioned and how it was spent. Are the girls paying this, but they're getting that? And, are we putting enough money into the girls' game? It was we were challenged, and in fact, a lot of our budgets were voted down. It was good. It was a challenge.
Well, I would say we spend too little time on the budget nowadays. We should spend a little bit more, maybe, because the
Yes, a
you
bit
know
more.
because the budget is what actually demonstrates what is your plan, basically, right? What are you
Yeah.
going to do? That's that you can see through the budget. You can't just say things and then, oh, there's no funding. So
An old boss of mine once said, "If you don't know where you'll go, any road will get you there." Okay, and yeah, Gerardo and I continually challenge the budget every year. We want to know apportionment and where that's going, and who's this and who's that. And they do a lot of things which aren't necessarily always what the clubs want, and you find out about it later. Having said that, the union has run very well. Carrie does a great job.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, she's strong. You have to be strong. You don't have to take any shit. To be quite honest, you have to be fairly autocratic. Listen to what people have to say, but you dismiss a lot of the crap. There is a lot of that. But it's tough. Yeah, you saw the AGM last weekend.
Yes, I was there.
It's tough. Whilst the clubs play well, they're not very well run administratively. That's fair to say. I think those clubs.
What would your assessment be? Let me ask you this question, because you've been so long, you've been in these positions. Uh, what do you think is like holding back the clubs? Because this is what my point is. Most of the clubs, especially the historic ones, they've not been around for 10 or 15 years. They've been around for 40 or 50 years.
Yeah,
So and so they started in the 70s, and here we are 2025. And what has changed? Most teams just have like one side, and that's it.
that's right.
Nobody actually has a field of its own. I think the only exception is, as far as I know, is Brevard having like dibs on that nice
Yeah, yeah,
field they
yeah,
have, but it's not, not that they buy it, but it's like theirs. Sarasota used to have a nice home field, which they don't have anymore. And as I said, the clubs still have, most of them, just one team. So what do you think is holding back? Because maybe you agree that over time you really want to develop more than one side, right? At least. And then I'm not going to go into why don't all these clubs don't have youth. Some of them have, most of them it's not organic. It's like there's a youth attached to the club, but not like coming from the club. So what do you think of the, and you mentioned administration, and I think that's the where it starts, right?
sure does. Yeah, I mean, there are a number of issues. Recruitment is hard. I know that from Boca. You recruit players who can afford to live in South Florida if you come down out of college, for example. Yeah, it's expensive. Yeah, are there jobs, the right jobs? You've got to work on jobs and accommodation, and the clubs need to work on these things. And this is an expensive state, becoming very expensive. And it's not attracting people from the north who played rugby. Very few, very few. Homegrown, if you go through the college programs, they leave the state very often for a job because there isn't a job here, or their degree can only work there. So there's if you look at some of the numbers in rugby generally, the attrition is, I think it's something like 8% of rugby players in college actually join a men's club. I know that's the last time I looked at it, 8 to 10%. Yeah. So where do they go? They get a job in the city, and they've got to concentrate on building a career, and they don't play rugby, sadly. So the recruitment of colleges, it's finding the numbers. I know that's the challenge for us in Boca. We work on it 25, 30, 35 sometimes, but it's transitory, I think is the word. People come here, they say, can you find me a job or find me accommodation? Well, yeah. So it's an expensive part of the world to live. So I can speak for South Florida. I'm sure it's the same for others. Even Tampa and Sarasota. There's nobody getting big numbers out for men's rugby, I don't think. Well, you can judge that. Well, you can judge that if they got a second team. And how many people have a second team?
We do have a few teams that have managed to keep second sides.
Yeah.
When I say a second side, is a competitive second side, not a B side, okay?
Right.
Because we know what those B sides are. But like a second side, Pelicans, Tampa, Orlando.
Yeah.
So we have a few, not everybody, but
it's cyclical, and there's certainly a pressure on fields, as you know. If it isn't turning 90% of it into turf, finding a grass field, for example, finding a field that's the same size, finding it's a field you can guarantee to have every week. We're lucky in Boca because we've got a youth program, and we coattail on the back of the youth. We provide rugby for youth, 130 of them.
You actually have one of the nicest fields here in South Florida.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, but we hang on to that under a lot of pressure from soccer. 1800s. Because Boca Soccer has 1,800 players, and they've got a lot of influence on what the city does for fields. They control everything except where we are. And they grow and they grow and they grow. Soccer is huge. Football, sorry, soccer. So you're under pressure from other sports. You're under pressure from playing on turf, and rugby should never be played on turf. I know it is, but it's dangerous for a lot of reasons. So. And then you've got towns that give you a field one year and not the next year. And then Naples struggled. They've struggled to find a place to play. And you want a regular place that you play and you train and you know where you're going. And I don't think there's a luxury of that in Florida. And you need people coming to Florida for work, and we don't have except obviously in the higher end of $1 million homes in the financial district. There's not people coming down here to work. It's tough. You control the recruitment you like. I mean, we try that in Boca. We have social media. We have this. We use networks. Somebody knows this. Somebody knows that. You don't know what you're going to get the next year, quite frankly.
Well, that's why I think once you get to the situation where you have two full teams, you're much more secure in terms of what's going to happen next year, right?
Sure, and you've got to have good coaches. Improve the level of coaching. We're very lucky to have one of the best coaches in the state, but there's a couple others around who are level 2. America steadfastly refuses to let people develop into level 3, for God knows why, but that's the fact. There isn't a level 3 in the state of Florida. That's not true. There's a Colombian guy who was national team.
The one in Palm Beach.
Yeah, but he's undercover. You've got to develop coaches. You've got to develop referees. You can't find referees. Not enough referees. Nobody wants to be a referee. So you're spreading thinly in refereeing. There's all sorts of things conspiring against the game. Recruitment, referees, coaching, fields. And I've heard on a couple of occasions that players coming out of college where they're quite well coached and saying, "What the hell's this?" When they go to a club, forget that. I got a job. You lose 80-90% of college players. School to college, I don't know what that percentage is. But it's tough. You're battling uphill. We don't have enough. We don't have select teams, so there's nothing to do beyond your club. I know we've had a few attempts at getting selecting. I mean, when I was president, we had a select. We had a north side, a south side. We had a state side. So you were trying to get in that team. We played Georgia.
When you were president, we played that. We had that Georgia, Florida as a curtain raiser for the Uruguay USA.
Correct. Yeah.
Right?
That's quite correct.
That was you, right?
Yeah, but I had a lot of control over that because I got a call 6 weeks before that game from USA saying we got nowhere to play. Can you find somewhere in Florida? So I found that cricket field. We secured that. It was the first time USA had ever played on a full-size field. We had kids games to open it. We did a lot of stuff to grow the game. Despite USA's interference, I won't go down that road. They wouldn't let me do VIP stands and corporate sponsorships. No. We just want to play the game. You leave that to us. Of course, they did nothing. And it's quite funny actually. You're right, because we had a great venue, good crowd.
Yeah.
Great game. Nice field. Set up by one of Boca's ex-guys who was a groundsman, who said, "I'm going to build a rugby field. It's going to be proper size," he said. And he did. And we found accommodation for them just out west. We organised everything. And I think it was the only game where the USA never lost money. But, it could have been better.
Well, that was the only 2 times I can recall having a USA game here was that time, and then like in 2015 when they played Chile.
That's right, at Lockhart, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was organised. That Uruguay game was organised in 6 weeks. A lot of hard work and a lot of amateur people coming down from USA Rugby. And I'll tell you a little story on that. I was very sneaky. The beer concessions and everything else, I set it up. I'm in the beer business. I controlled the revenue, and all the revenue went to Florida Rugby Union. And then the finance girl says, "You can't do that." I said, "Well, you didn't. You're so incompetent. You didn't even ask." I set it up. I have contacts in the beer business. All those bars that were around there selling beer, I arranged the contract, and we got a skim, and that went to the Florida Union, who needed money at the time. So tell me, it was good money. I had to give half of it back. That was an agreement in the end. But
when the lawyers called, right?
No. When Melville said, "You're a thieving bastard," and I said, "Well, okay, I'll give you half back." I said, we put a lot of work into it, developed the game, brought the kids. They wouldn't let the kids in free. For God's sake, all the things we wanted to do to grow the game. There's a story on that.
I was part of the kids thing.
Yeah.
Because that was and we were just starting out that same year.
Yeah, I said, give free tickets to the kids. That's what everybody does, right? Come in. No, everybody's got to pay. Let me do VIP stands. And I put in those bleachers, and I'll charge 150. And there's corporate, write-offs, taxation, 501c3. No. Anyway, to say they played on a full-size field for the first time, they never lost money, and they beat. Who did they beat? Was it Uruguay?
Uruguay, yeah.
Uruguay, yeah.
Unfortunately.
Oh, yes, of course. Sorry, Charlie. Yeah. Yeah.
We still made it to the World Cup with the repechage,
You did, yeah. That's good. Yeah, and you're gonna do it again. That's memorable for me because I think your kicker used to put the ball on a pile of earth. He didn't have a tee. Yeah, he used to build sand. He had a sand bucket. It came on.
Really, like in the good old days.
It was. I think about the last time I ever saw that, but yeah, it was a good experience, and nobody lost money. We had a great social afterwards down in Fort Lauderdale. The man from the plane crash that came along, he was the president, I think, at the time. Wonderful man, the plane crash with the players in the Andes.
Servino.
Yeah, he came along, and
he was the president of the Uruguayan Rugby Union.
That's correct. Yeah. We had we were doing well down in Fort Lauderdale. A lot of bars, and a lot of drinking, and a lot of good friendships made. Yeah. Yeah, we had a Brazil game there too. I got a call from, you might not remember it, but Brazil.
I do not.
Yeah, we played
At that same venue?
Florida played Brazil at the same venue. Yeah. Where were you?
Wow.
They came up from Brazil to play Trinidad, and they wanted a game on the way down to Trinidad. So we gave them the game at that same stadium, not long after Uruguay.
And who played, like a select side from Florida?
Yeah, Florida select against Brazil. Yeah, the beginnings of the USA side. So we played Brazil. I still got the shirt. Yeah, and language was a problem, but they understood beer, venue, after match, and they went down and beat Trinidad afterwards. So they said thank you, because they wanted a warm up game. They had to come to Miami to go down to Trinidad, and we hastily organised it at the same venue. Yeah, it was long after Uruguay, I don't think, but these things could be lost in history if we didn't mention it. Yeah, but we did.
Well, the thing is, back then you did not have rugby in Florida. Rugby FL documenting everything. That's why.
There you go, Charlie. Yes, and
If I was there, it would have happened.
yeah, and he would have done the expose, as they say. And, what is going on? Why is this like that? We needed more people to challenge it. It was funny, the Uruguay game, because we needed somebody to do commentary. So Ross had his buddies from Uruguay.
Oh, yeah. What's his name? He was.
Yeah, he did the commentary. He did the announcements in the stadium. And Ross was doing the English stuff, So we were scrambling for people to do something. We've never hosted a game, and you have 6 weeks to prepare. Thank you, Nigel Melville. But it was historic, very historic. Yeah.
And listen, it was that's one of the things that I personally want to miss from not having the Sharks anymore. Because whenever you move up to that level, I remember that game, the Uruguay USA game. It was like, wow, everything was so organized, and everything was so the nice pitch, the post.
Everything. Yeah.
I remember getting one because I was in that. Like, I don't know if the kids went in between the half of the game or between games. I'm not sure when we did that.
I think it was before the game.
Before the USA game.
Yeah.
And they were like so picky, like, oh, don't stand on the field. Like,
listen, it was hard to get them to agree for it to happen. What are you going to ruin the field? Yeah. What are these kids doing? Keep it.
I think I'm not sure if they didn't let us wear cleats. We had to wear like sneakers, something like that. I don't know.
No, I think it was cleats, but I just gave them a 4-letter followed by a 3-letter word. They're playing. We want to grow the game. What's wrong with that?
No, that was really nice. And I remember leaving the field. I did a little drop goal just to,
say I did it.
Yeah, I did it.
Yeah. I just said to Melville, it's called rookie rugby, mate. And this is rookie rugby as you dreamed it before you became president of the union. Yeah? And he said, yeah, okay. Yeah. I said, look, I organized it. We're putting it on. So look off, And yeah, they brought kids. Now they stayed and watched the game, but we weren't allowed to bring in the emerging youth, school, high school. I wanted to give them free tickets. Well, they do everywhere else in the world, right? You give free tickets to the kids. Go to the game, watch it at a high level, dream, playing for USA or Uruguay, But yeah, that was fun.
So, John, as much as you're not done yet, because you're still active in rugby, you're still president of Boca.
Hopefully.
Mm-hmm. At every game and event, but just looking backwards, what has rugby given you? What has it meant for you? And why do you think it is a sport that changes lives and you would recommend it for parents?
This is not any particular order. I mean, immense pleasure to be part of the rugby game in Florida. Wherever I am, I want to get involved. Great friendships, dozens of people that I'd met and enjoyed their company, talking rugby. I mean, that's one of the great things of rugby for me is off the field, you know, and the pleasure it gives you in contacts and friendships. If you come to my 80th, you would have seen it. You know, and hopefully it still goes on. The ability at my age to run around as much in the away games is not there, but fortunately I got the odd driver, like Ale, who drove me up to last weekend. How much fun was that? You know, in other clubs, there's some other great characters in the game, like Corky Newman, Brevard. I mean, Corky, I learned a lot from Corky. He's got a great thing going there.
That's a true dictator for life, huh?
Oh, he's my way or the highway, like I was in Florida Union, and never in Boca, of course. I encouraged a very young board and getting them to understand what it takes to run a rugby club, you know, and understand the finances, the implications, the fixtures, the people. Half my board is still playing, which is great. You know, they're not old farts, and they're close to the game, but need some guidance. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
So I thoroughly enjoy it. Staying engaged for me is what keeps me alive. You know, if I didn't have my rugby, what would I be doing? You know, particularly when you start to retire, you need to get involved, even if it's all in the kit or doing something. You know, it's that's your lifeblood, and it's what kept me going all my life. Some involvement.
Can you remember people that you are grateful of what they helped you out with in whatever aspects, being as a player, a coach, a referee, an officer, people you think, wow, this guy or this woman.
In Florida, particularly.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well,
Yeah,
anywhere.
yeah. So who had the greatest influence on my life? Well, that would be my company for sending me to places where I could get involved in rugby. Of course. When I was traveling, by the way, I put the boots on for Jamaica. I pulled the boots on for Cameroon, because I'd always take my boots when I was traveling in business. You know, I played for Hong Kong against Taiwan. Global rugby brotherhood. You know, if I checked into a city on business, I'd find out where I could go for a run. Where's the club? Where they play? And some very obscure places. Playing for Cameroon against Nigeria was a lot of fun. Jamaica. You know, of course, I lost my place in the first team because I was traveling too much. But hell, I had the compensation of, you know, Kenya, for example. I loved Kenya. I went there on a tour with my club, and I got Kenya sponsorship. It's just fun to have. You know, I can't name any particular individual, but my company for allowing me to do it, and my friends and connections, and everything else that has given me a life. Yeah, it's wonderful. Hope that long may it continue.
Yeah, for sure. Why not? So, okay, John, it's been really a pleasure talking to you. I'm really glad to see you doing well in your early 80s, and hopefully we'll have you around for a few years.
Inshallah, as they say. Yes. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, it's good to do recollections.
Yeah.
The kids were saying you're a boring old fart, but you got to remember back what gave you fun in the last 70 years. It's great. Appreciate
So
it.
I'll see you on the sidelines.
See you on the sidelines as ever. Yeah, we see you somewhere. And hey, thanks, what I said, for what you do. This is a great website. It's a great interaction site. You know, as you saw, even the president of the Rugby Union said, if you want to know what's going on, get on Charlie's website. And by the way, we should help you fund it too some way. If we're talking about budget, I know where some of it should go. Okay.
Good luck with that.
We'll work on that.
Thank you. Bye,
Okay,
John.
my friend.
Take care.
Yeah, goodbye.